6 yards. He was wide open.
After the turnover.
He's got a man.
Harburg going deep. Caught.
Shocking move by the Huskers, especially for being in the middle of the season. You just don't see this, which to me shows you and proves Rule will do anything he can to succeed. And this is really good to see. So what I want to do is go over this and show you why this is big. And if you watched, I put out a video about a week ago about the offensive coordinators that I felt like the Huskers could go get that would boost the offense. And I didn't have Dana in there mainly because Dana was, to me, Rule's first choice, and talked to him. And for whatever reason, they didn't work it out. I didn't know if it had to do with money or whatever situation it was. And so I kind of thought he was off the table. So I went out there but he would have probably been on one of my lists. I think I still would have stuck with Bryles as my choice. I just like him. He's younger, and what he's done at the level that he's done it at, and against some teams that Nebraska plays every year. So he's had more success against Big Ten opponents. And so that was probably why I probably still would have chose Bryles over Dana here. But I'm not disappointed here. It's like having two pretty girls and you getting one and not the other. You're not going to be too disappointed. You gave me $2 million instead of $3 million. I ain't going to cry about it. But then why it should succeed and why this could actually be good. And the question is it good for Nebraska now in 2024? Will this work for 2024? You might be surprised by the answer. And at the end, I want to talk a little bit about Phil Snow. He's the defensive consultant that came in here to help, probably to give Tony White someone else to kind of talk through. I know Tony White's not in trouble or is on the verge of losing his job. I got a feeling this is probably the guy Rule wanted to start off with. He's always been with Rule. He's kind of went where Rule went. And then when he got let go, when the Panthers let go Rule and the staff, Phil wanted to take some time off. But I got a feeling this is kind of his choice and he's not getting rid of Tony White. Don't get me wrong. If Tony White decides that he wants to stay, he's staying. Probably Phil stays on the staff too, or he might not. But I got a feeling Tony White might be moving on. As we all know, he could be getting a head coaching job. And this could be their way of easing Phil into the system, because this is, to me, going to be the new norm. With now them having unlimited coaches, expect this to be the normal. And I'll tell you why. These coaches, head coaches and all that, they know which one of their coaches is leaving, which one of their coaches is staying, which one's probably sought after, because they normally will reach out and see if it's okay to talk to them. Sometimes they don't. And some of the worst things that could happen is all of a sudden you just see it in the media, so-and-so leaves for a head coaching job over here. And that affects recruiting, affects a lot of things, where even now with the players that are on the team, mainly with players that can transfer whenever they want now, basically. So I feel like this is going to be a norm. Why? Because what happens now, if you kind of do that and you kind of can get your guy in here like this, you get Phil Snow in here who gets a feel with Tony White, sees Tony White and Phil working together, maybe solve some issues, that where the Huskers are struggling in certain areas, and Phil might help with that area. And that would be something where the staff, the recruits, the players on the team, they get used to him. So that way, if one of them move on, if Tony moves on or whatever, they still have that connection with someone here. Now, it would have been better if he'd been here the whole time, but it still gives them something to see how he does, what's he all about, can I learn from him? And I feel like that's the reason why that move was made, just because I feel like if Tony White moves on, Phil then moves into that defensive coordinator spot. I really don't think you'll miss a beat with Phil there. It might even be better in a little bit of a way. It might be better, mainly in the conference we're in. But I want to get into Dana Holgorsen, and tell you why this move, this big move that Nebraska did, that they shocked everybody and did, one's going to be the norm, but two, was it done early enough? And was it done early enough to make a difference this year? But if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Doesn't cost you anything whatsoever. And of course, like always, smash that like button. I'd really appreciate it. So I'm going to get in here and talk about Dana Holgorsen. And you can see here in this picture, this is back when Rule played West Virginia, when Rule was at Baylor and Holgorsen was at West Virginia, was the head coach then at West Virginia. But the reason why Holgorsen's systems, and you're going to see when you go through these how successful his offenses have been almost every year. And to get a kind of a feel, and you guys saw how last year was, how bad Nebraska's offense was last year. So let me give you a feel of what it is this year. A lot of people would say, oh, it's doing a lot better last year than last year. Yes, it's doing better than last year because you couldn't do much worse. But right now, the Nebraska's offense, and it's struggled basically all season. They're ranked 99th out of about 133, 134 teams in total offense, averaging just 354.1 yards total in a game. The Huskers also ranked 100th in scoring, again, out of about 133 teams, with a measly 23.6 points. Sadly, is better than last year, but not much better. So I want to get in what Holgorsen has done throughout his career. He started out, he was offensive coordinator in 2007 with Texas Tech Raiders. His first team, Texas Tech, averaged 40.9 points per game, which was seventh in the nation. Not in the Big 12, not in the conference. He was seventh in the nation at 40.9. 529.6 yards per game of total offense, which was second in the nation. 470.3 in the passing yards, which was number one in the nation, but he only averaged 59.3 yards of rushing, which was 120. And that's because Holgorsen is more of a run and shoot, more of a passing attack. They kind of do the opposite. They use the pass to boost the run, where most of them will run to boost the pass. Because what he does is he centers his core, and he believes what he does enables players. He gives them the basic. He doesn't overwhelm. You got to think you only have these players for 4 or 5 years, or not even that, 3 or 4 years. A lot of them leave early now, or they transfer. So you have to give them you got to give them an offense that's not hard to learn, doesn't hard to memorize, can get in there and pick it up quick, because it's not like it is in the NFL, and you can have a complex offense because your players are there for 7, 8, 9, 10 plus years. So you got to have an offense and simplify it. And if y'all remember, the Huskers defense was struggling on Frost last year when he was let go, and they hired the defensive coordinator. They just kind of, I hate using it, but they kind of dumbed it down, if you know what I mean. They just kind of brought it down to where it was easier to catch on, easy to memorize, not because these players couldn't memorize it. They could get in there and get it complex, but you need time to do that. Well, you don't have time. By the time you get it down and you have it down so well, it's time to move on. They're graduating, they're moving on. So that's what makes his offenses so good. This isn't the first time that the Huskers, like I said, have talked to him. This was Rule's first choice. There was a lot of conversations. It looked like, to me, I thought that's where they were going to go. And then for some reason, a deal wasn't made. Don't know the reason. And so that was the main reason I didn't put him in on my list, because I thought, well, they've already went down that road, and it didn't work out. Now, in 2008, he did move on as a offensive coordinator for the Houston Cougars. In that first year with Houston, he averaged 40.6 points per game. Again, that was 10th in the nation, 562.8 yards in total yards per game, which again was second in the nation. He was 401.6 passing yards, which dropped him to number 2 in the nation. And that's because he boosted his run yards per game to 161 nationally, which was 47th, probably about in the middle of the pack. And when you have an offense that puts up that many yards, and you have a passing game that puts up the number 2 yards per game, to have a running game in the middle of the pack is outstanding. In 2009, his second year as offensive coordinator with Houston, again, he moved up. He averaged 42.2 points per game, which moved him up to second in the nation. 563.4 yards per game of total offense, which moved him up to number 1. 433.7 yards passing per game, which that moved him up to number 1 in the nation. And he still averaged 129.6 yards per game, which went down to about 83rd in the nation. And again, when you throw that much, the passing game or the running game is more of to keep a team all out of balance. It's kind of back in the good old days when Nebraska ran the ball and had the best rushing offense, averaged 395 yards, rushing yards a game, but their passing game was like 80. And everybody talked, they couldn't win because they didn't pass, or they just can't pass. It wasn't that they couldn't pass, didn't need to pass. That's the same thing here. But no, and you heard it way back in the 90s. You heard it all the time that Tom Osborne wasn't going to be able to win. That team ain't going anywhere. They're going to always get beat by the Florida teams, Florida States, Miami, because of that offense. Because offense is what they call too predictable. They know what they're doing. And then you saw what happened in the 90s. It's called execution, guys. When you finally get that team to execute and do what they're supposed to be doing, you're going to see it happen. In 2010, Holgorsen moved to Oklahoma State Cowboys and Mike Gundy's team. And what he did is he moved over there, and in his first year in the Big 12 there, he averaged 44.2 points per game, which was third in the nation. 521.3 per game of total offense, which again was third in the nation of all the teams, 134 teams. He had an average passing yards of 345.8, which was still second in the nation, but his rushing per game was 174.4 yards per game, which was 36th in the nation. And this is kind of an offense right here I could see Nebraska being right there that first year with Oklahoma State. This was what I could see them being. Maybe a little more balanced, but deadly in the air. Man, when you got a quarterback like Dylan Raiola. Now, in 2011, he only stayed 1 year at Oklahoma State, and he got promoted to head coach to the West Virginia Mountaineers. 2011, still had a lot of control over the offense, still ran the offense his way. And that first year with West Virginia, who had a pretty poor team going into that, and in his first year, averaged 37.6 points per game, which was still ninth in the nation, 469.5 yards of total offense, which was 15th, 346.8 yards in passing, which was number 6th in the nation, and still rushed for 122.7 yards per game, which was 92nd. And you can see he still had a top offense, even going over there with the players they had at that time before started getting his players in. In his second year as head coach with the Mountaineers, 39.5 points per game, which was still ninth in the nation. He went up to 502 total yards per game, which put him in the top 10, 10th in the nation. 330 of those were passing yards per game, which was 10th in the nation. And then 171 rushing yards per game, which was 52nd, which is still in the upper half. And then in 13, still as the head coach, he kind of have a down year. And they went through a lot of injuries in 2013, if you go back and look at that season, but still averaged better than what Nebraska's doing right now. Averaged 26.3 points per game, which was 81st. 410.8 yards of total offense, which was 63rd. 262.1 yards per game of passing yards, which was 34th. We take that. And still rushed for 148.7, which is 83rd. And that was a big year for him right here. But like I said, you got to go see the injuries he had, the quarterback he had to go to, which made a big difference. The very next year, he rebounded. 2014, still with West Virginia, averaged 33.5 points, which was 37th in the nation. 499.8 total yards, which was 12th. 317 are passing yards per game, which was 9th in the nation, and still rushed for 182.8 yards per game during that season, which was 45th. In 2015, he averaged 34 points per game, which was 36th, 479.7 passing or yards per game total offense, which was 22nd. 251.5 of those was of passing per game, which was 42nd, and 228.2 yards per game in rushing, which was 16th. And that was a more balanced offense, so you could see he can do it. If everybody's thinking, wow, man, is this high-rated passing game going to work? Well, you could see he can do that. But you could see the one where the points are up there is where you were all about passing. Spread them out, spin them out, and throw it. But again, you get more plays in during the game. You're doing a kind of a hurry up. He's more of that hurry up kind of offense. Get in 80 plus plays every game. And that's how you average 40 plus points. In 2016, he averaged 31.2 points per game, which was 50th, 485.5 yards of total offense per game, which was 17th in the nation. Again, he was balanced, 257.2 yards of passing, 228.4 yards of rushing, basically identical to the 15-year, which put him at 42nd and 25th in the nation in them categories. In 2017, again, he averaged 34.5 points per game. You could see he averages around the mid-30s, which is really all we need. 22nd in the nation, 459.5 yards of total offense, which was 20th, 309.3 yards per game in passing, which was 13th, and still averaged 150 yards of rushing. Back in 2018, he got it up to 40.3 points per game, which was 10th, 512 of total offense, which was 7th, 4th in passing yards per game at 351 and 160.9 of rushing before he moved on as head coach of Houston Cougars in 2019. And again, Houston was struggling, fired their coach, brought in Dana Holgorsen, and his first year with them players averaged 30.7 points per game for 51st in the nation, 382.6 yards per game of total offense, which is 78, and averaged 203 of passing to 189 rushing. And again, you're playing at Houston. And the one thing I got to see with these guys, with these teams right here, Houston's playing a lot of your Power 5 programs back down there. They're playing a lot of the big boys. So they're kind of that other team that teams bring in. And he's doing it with not the best recruits. At West Virginia and at Houston, he's not getting the top-notch 4 and 5-star players. Now, I got to admit, down in Houston, even their, how do you put it, even their players at Texas is just full of talent down there when it comes to football. And some of their lesser, what they would call lesser star players are probably just as good, if not better, than a lot of states' top players. Some of them lower forward players are probably just as good, if not better, than some of the other states' players, and especially in that league. But you see, in 2020, now 2020, you got to remember, was a COVID year. Didn't play the whole year, but he still averaged 30.3 points per game, which was 53rd, 408.9 total offense, 265 in passing to 143 in rushing. In 2021, he got it up to 35.9 yards, 35.9 points per game, which was 15th, 414.9 yards of total offense, which was 59th, 271.4 yards of passing per game, which was 23rd in the nation, and 143.4 in rushing. And then he averaged 36.1 points per game, 17th in the nation, 455.8 yards of total offense, which was 25th, 314 yards of passing, which was 8th, top 10, and 141.8 of rushing yards. In 23, he had probably his worst year, his down year. But look at this. His worst of all his career over the last 20 years was Houston in 2023, 23.7 points per game. Where was Nebraska right now? What was it, 23.6, if I remember right? Yeah, 23.6, 354 total offense together. He averaged 360.2 yards, which was 86. Nebraska was 100. Nebraska's sitting at 100. 241.5 yards per game passing, which is 53rd, but averages 118.7 yards in rushing. And I'm saying he did this at a team like Houston, who didn't have the talent that Nebraska has right now. So he lacked that talent and that top recruits. So what could he do with some top players? What could he do with a Michael Terry? You know, what's he going to do with some of these top receivers that come in here now and know this guy throws it all over the field? How's this going to look to Michael Terry now? He knows what Dylan Raiola is and his arm, and now he knows an offensive coordinator that loves to throw the ball. That can boost his recruiting there. Will that get him? It's going to be hard to beat Texas. I always said he was going to go to Oregon, and I still got a gut feeling he goes to Oregon. But I think Texas is kind of taking second place with Nebraska third, but I still think they're close. I think they're all close. And it wouldn't surprise me Rule pull it out. He just got that way of doing it. Just his demeanor and his relationships. Because I don't think it's going to come down to NIL. And it could be. Texas or Oregon could fork out a little more money than Nebraska is willing to do and win it. But I think a lot has to do with where Terry feels the most comfortable, where he feels like it's going to boost his stock. And right now, Nebraska's in that prove it stage. They just haven't done it. And there are a lot of recruits just don't want to take that chance with their career to go, I really think you're going to do it. But until you do it, I don't want to risk. I don't want to gamble my life, gamble my career that you're going to do it, even though Rule's trying to say, hey, we could do it with you. For us to do it, we need you. So, and I'm sure Rule's giving him that. And does the guy have an ego enough going, yeah, I can make a difference. I could go there and be loved. I could go there and be a star, because you go there and do it here in Lincoln, you're going to be all over the place. You're going to be a superstar. You go do it in Oregon and Texas, and you're just another receiver that's probably sitting on the bench, sitting, waiting your turn because of the top talent they already have, where I guarantee you Terry comes, and if he could come early, could be a starter come next year. You could see, look what Barney's doing. Just think now, if you have Barney on the field and then Michael Terry on the field, who else do they get? So you could see it happening. I want to get into what I thought another surprise move. Phil Snow, the defensive consultant that came in. At first, when you hear consultant, you're like, yeah, right, consultant. And I really kind of think that on both of them. I said that even from the beginning with Dana Holgorsen. I said, I just don't see him just sitting on the bench doing nothing. I don't see him being he's never been that type. He's kind of a go get it and go do it kind of guy. And then Rule announced that he will be the offensive coordinator, which I kind of saw it coming. So the question you want to ask yourself is, will it make a difference this year? Will it make a difference in 2024? I feel like Dana is going to come in here and not change a whole lot. You only got 3 games. You only had 2 weeks before the USC game. Probably going to add some plays a little bit at a time. Again, one thing about his system, it's pretty simplified, easy to learn, easy to pick up, and more aggressive. But I also think he's going to keep a lot of the plays they already have. Not, most plays are not much different in any team if you go look. Probably going to keep the same verbiage, just mix it in with what they have, because these players can't start learning something with 3 weeks to go. So I feel like he will probably mix in some plays here and there. They might work on them during their practice weeks to get rid of the next game. I'm sure he's adding a few there for USC, probably add some on against Wisconsin and then Iowa. Then in the offseason, you're probably going to see a difference and blend to what he's probably done throughout his whole career, with a mixture of what, and I guarantee you Dylan Raiola is going to be well involved in this, as well as the receivers. So I feel like, yeah, it makes some difference. Will it be enough to win? I think it's enough probably to win another game. But again, like I said, to me, it wasn't more talent that was keeping them from it. It's psychological. To me, it's just psychological. It's that 6th win. It's a big win. It's a lot more pressure to me to win in Nebraska than in most places. If people talk about, well, look at Indiana, look what they're doing. Indiana's not used to winning. Indiana fans are just ecstatic if they ended where they're at. This is the first time ever they ever won 10 games in the program's history. So it's a big difference pressure wise. These kids are feeling it. A lot of these kids that are from Nebraska are feeling it. A lot of these seniors feeling it. They don't even know how it feels to pull one out, to win, to go to a bowl. So that, like I said from the beginning, like I said last year and again this year, going into this year, I said the hardest one is going to be number 6. If we could just get that 6th win, that's why I always wish, man, why couldn't that 6th win be like against, you know, Northern Iowa, an FCS school, just because they'd probably still struggle but pull it out. But once they get 6th win, once they already got the bowl game, those you'll see them more relaxed and play a lot better, win or lose. And if they could just pull out, let's say they do it against USC, then I would say they could win both Wisconsin and Iowa, but if not at least one of them, they would finish with at least 7. But if they can't beat USC, they're going to struggle. It might not be where they get another win because as soon as you play that game and you don't win, now there's 2 games. Don't win that one. Now there's only 1 game. The pressure just builds more and more and more. And that's what happened last year, to the point you're just making it. And these, as you know, these games are already close, and it don't take many mistakes to cost you the game. It has nothing to do with lack of talent. We got the talent, and again, you got to watch. We're playing a freshman quarterback that only played 9 games in his whole college career. He's done outstanding. I saw a tweet or whatever, saw it on Facebook where they didn't think he's done well, and tired of people saying how well he's done. That he hasn't done anything. Dude, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because how many other true freshman quarterbacks are coming in here doing this and only playing 9 games? Didn't say he was going to be perfect. Didn't say he was going to come in here and just, be Roger Staubach. Okay, maybe that's too early for you guys. Troy Aikman, that's still too early? All right. Tom Brady, most of y'all know him. So he's not going to be like that. But you could see he's smart. He learns. They're throwing things at him. We got some good coaches in this league. They're seeing film on him, say this is working, and he's going to start learning. He's going to start picking up. He's in that film room seeing what they're doing. These other teams are going to try to start doing some of that too, and he's going to have an answer for it. He's a little off. There's some, if you just turn around and just 1 or 2 of them throws are right there, you already got a couple more wins. Illinois is another one. Could have easily been a win. Wide open, just missed him. It happens. It's going to get better and better. Another thing is, you got that Indiana quarterback's been there 6 years. He's like 24 years old. Dylan was like 12 or 13 at that time. I'm telling you right now, I know he won't be, because he'll move on. He'll be in the NFL playing. But you're here 6 years when you're not that good, because you would have been gone to the NFL. But what would Dylan Raiola be in his 6th year in college here at Lincoln? I'd love to find out, but I know he's going to be lighting it up somewhere in the NFL by then. So, to me, get off of him. He's done great, and I'm glad he's here. I hope he stays here the whole time. He'll be able to be a strong coach to his little brother when he gets here, and I think Dayton's going to be just as good. Could be even better, just because he's learning from his brother's mistakes. Going to have more to teach him. I just think it's wrong when people say Dylan's struggling, he ain't done what he's supposed to do, and he ain't that great and all that. That's just so wrong. Mainly to a true freshman, 19 years old, played only in 9 total games. Come on, wait till next year. You're going to see every year, you're going to see a big difference, because he's just a student of the game, and he's going to do nothing but try to get better. The good thing about Dylan, no matter what he does, he's going to feel like, I need to get better. He could be undefeated right now, and he feel like he need to be getting better. And that's what you want. Now, I want to go back to Phil Snow. Phil Snow, we did hire Phil Snow as a defensive consultant. And yes, I will say he's a consultant right now, because I don't see him. Tony White's not in trouble. He ain't threatened to lose his job. But like I said, I feel like this is going to be the normal that you're going to start seeing. This way, players that are on the team, mainly with the transfers, players on the team get used to him. I feel like this is Rule's choice. Probably remember, this would have been the guy Rule would have hired if he was willing to go right away, but he wanted to take some time off. And what happens is he gets in here, recruits get to know him, they get to see what he can do, players get to see what he could do, they could fix. You got two great defensive minds thinking together. Remember, two minds are better than one to solve some of these issues. Something that Tony White's good at, he's got fixed, and then something that maybe Tony White hasn't really got a hang of. Phil Sims, listen to me. Phil Snow might got fixed. So I feel like what they're doing is they're getting him in, getting acclimated to everybody. Players get to see him, and then if Tony White gets that coaching job, gets that head coaching job, the players here, the recruits here, know who's staying and who's taking over. Kind of like Foster, when Foster took over UCLA, that was the main reason they made him head coach, because they didn't want to lose players. That's what I see here, and I think you're going to start seeing that more and more, mainly because these coaches, these head coaches, know what coaches are probably headed out the door, which ones are being sought by other teams, and wouldn't be surprised when you could have unlimited coaches that you could bring in someone, have them, on the team and working with the players for some of the year. I wish they'd kind of brought them in sooner, maybe even halfway through the season. But when you're 5-1, you really don't want to rock the boat, if you know what I mean. If they would have struggled early, it probably would have happened early. So that's all I wanted to say. I think this is going to be a big difference. They do play USC come Saturday. I think it's going to be a tough one. I feel like Nebraska is probably going to play well. They do got a couple weeks. They had a couple weeks to get ready for them, but I think Riley knows what he's doing. Riley decided to switch quarterbacks on him, put a mobile quarterback in there. I'm sure he's looked and saw Nebraska struggles more on a mobile quarterback. I was thinking this could be a win just because of their starting quarterback. He was more of a pocket passer, and Nebraska dominates a player like that. Remember, what hurt Shedeur Sanders was he just wouldn't run out of there. He just wouldn't run, and he got sacked. And that's kind of made the difference. Since then, he's been able to take off, move around in that pocket better. If Nebraska can't get to him, and I believe they could get to him, the problem is he's going to be Houdini getting out of there. So, and you are playing at USC. So if I had to give a prediction here, I feel like it's probably going to be more of a defensive game. I feel like defense probably will. We might be able to shock them with some plays here and there. But I feel like if Nebraska could get about 24, 28 points, they could win this game. If they can't get over that, I don't think they'll win it. They'll probably lose it 24-21, maybe 21-17. But again, if they could pull out 24 or 28 points, they could probably win that thing 24-21 or 28-21. It's going to be a close one, but just got a feeling being in Los Angeles might be another close loss. Again, it's a tough one. The sixth win is always going to be tough. But if they could get this win, you're going to see a difference maker on the team the next week against Wisconsin. You watch. So, guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It means a lot. And, of course, give this video a thumbs up. I appreciate it. Till the next video, go Big Red.